them, more specifically, to bid, award, and begin construction. Complete phase 1 infiltration and inflow remediation improvement project. Complete the liquid chemical feeds at wastewater treatment plant. Construct new town entrance signs and complete engineering and design of Sergeant Woodard Union Park, and to try and solicit funding for that. Additionally, to secure an HTAX bond of $5 million and determine phase 1 project bid and award that over the course of next year. Hire an additional parks, maintenance, and repair employee for the street department, and to fund an HTAX grant program and award nonprofits funding towards town-related events. Across the board changes within this budget. As the budget stands now, it has a 4% cost of living increase for all employees. Continued increases, we did see continued increases to our general liability, property, and vehicle insurance rates. I will tell you, this is again an industry-wide issue that everybody's facing. And state retirement, I do want to note this is the last year of that 8-year of 1% increases to state retirement. So next year, we shouldn't have to be talking about a 1% increase in state retirement. We'll keep our fingers crossed on that. Fuel costs continue to be an issue. It's not that they've really gone up any more, it's that they continue to still be higher. Hopefully, things can be done to get that brought back down. We did see increased revenue primarily on the general fund and HTAX budgets, which helped a lot with getting those budgets done. And all of the discussed annual action items are funded in the proposed budget that you have. To start out, we're going to start with an overall, we'll start real quick with the overall picture. You'll see that we've got a $17,064,521 budget in front of you.
I take issue with that.
Okay.
You're double counting $1.458 million.
Right, but in
the issue is that people see that 17 million, they're going to expect a lot more out of the performance for the town than if they see the actual dollars.
In the world of supplying council with a balanced budget, you know, just last year, we incorporated some of the funding that was left over from the year before that was brought in on the American Rescue Plan funds, and that was a part of last year's budget. But to show, knowing that those expenses are going to be going out, we have to show that remaining balance as revenue for the sake of balancing the budget. I understand what you're saying. It does kind of.
We don't have $17 million to spend.
What do you mean? Not in the bank right now, no.
No, you're not going to have $17 million to spend. You can only spend $15,600,000. You're double counting you're double counting that money.
Okay. Then what would have to happen is we have no American Rescue Plans coming in. We would have $1.4 million in expenses, and we'd be in a we would show a $1.4 million deficit. Because we have to show those expenses going out.
I failed to make my point. Okay.
I'm sorry if I'm not following.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. I mean, you double count it in both places. So if you're removed from one, you have to remove it from the other.
So you would say we don't need to budget for any American Rescue Plan funds at all?
Either that or put it as a footnote. But I'm just saying.
Okay. I mean,
your call.
Okay. So looking at the overall breakdown of the budget, the water project for this year would account for 29% of the overall budget, with ARP being 9%, and you can see kind of around how everything else lines up as far as the overall budget is concerned. Starting with the general fund, $5,668,651 of both revenue and expenses for this year. Some overall revenue highlights. We were able to increase property and vehicle taxes by a combined $64,000 for this year. We increased the business license revenue by $175,000. Last year we brought in about $1.3 million in business license revenue. We're on track at this point we're higher than we were last year at this time, but we went ahead and went with $1,250,000 in the budget for this year, just to be conservative on our estimate. $315,500 will be an American Rescue Plan transfer for the second payment of the fire truck once that truck is completed being built and we receive it. And then obviously we have the garbage fee, $4.97 per month increase, that we increased that line item by $136,000 to account for the new rate taking effect July 1st. Dominion Energy franchise fee increased $30,300 based on the amount they gave us for this coming year. The E911 line item has been increased by $68,000 due to some upgrades that we're going to do to our dispatch for this year. Those upgrades are projected to be about $88,000. We get 80% reimbursement from the state, so that works out to about $68,000. It was $88,000 or $85,000 for those upgrades. And then the fire service contract, we've just recently negotiated. We'll be bringing this contract back to council for approval, but we went to them and asked them for $50,000 increase from $50,000 to $100,000 in our contract with them. We hit them a little late in they had just gotten their budget out to their governing body. So what we've agreed to is we're going to do $25,000 this year, year one, $25,000 year two, and in year one we're gonna also agree to put what's called mobile data terminals. I keep wanting to say transmitters. Terminals into 6 of our fire trucks as a part of this agreement. And what those will allow us to do is to be a part of their dispatch center and where the mobilized equipment is, where everything's located to help with future dispatching. And we'd be purchasing 2 of those for this year. So revenue reflects a $25,000 increase in this year's budget. Administration budget, salary and wages increased by $57,000, which reflects the new finance employee that we had discussed. Also, we did a little restructuring within staff. We had somebody who had taken on more primary duties within building permitting and licensing and stuff, who had previously been funded out of the utility fund. We had somebody who was doing more utilities type work that was in the general fund, so we kind of swapped those positions in the budget this year, which changed the numbers between building and administration department. So a little bit of restructuring, but the majority of that is going to be the new finance employee. Other personnel costs for FICA, medical, and retirement are due to the new employee and the restructuring. We were able to bring the miscellaneous expense line item down this year because last year we had funded the hotel analysis study out of that. And then the maintenance contract was increased by $4,000 due to IT services and town hall, which are more turnkey. And this is related to a copier printer contract that we got on previously. We paid a contract, but we bought all of our toners separate every time we needed to refill. This is going to be a turnkey, so when it gets low, it alerts when they automatically mail it to us. The fire department budget, salary and wages increased $12,000 due to our 8 to 5 position. This increase overcomes the loss. Our firefighters have automatic built-in overtime into their salary. So the person who moved to the 8 to 5 schedule was going to lose a fairly significant amount of money moving to the 8 to 5 because he would no longer have the built-in overtime. So we had to increase that $12,000 to help him overcome.
This was the training position.
This was the one that was previously in the school. Correct.
School no longer has a firefighting course.
They were no longer going to support it. The maintenance contract, what else, Mr. Dillon? Maintenance contract line item was increased $8,400. We've got some specialized testing of firefighting gear and different things such as Hurst tool, SCBA cylinder testing, and testing of our compressed air systems, and then pump testing on our fire truck. Some of these are annual, but some of these are not necessarily annual, but they have to be done periodically. So we had to increase that on $8,400 to cover that testing and servicing this year. Telecommunications, we've increased $11,000, going back to what we just talked about with the fire service contract. We'll need to purchase 2 of the mobile data transmitters or terminals this year, so we allotted $11,000 for that. And the capital line item has that $315,000 budgeted for the second payment of the fire truck when it's done being constructed. Police department budget highlights, salary and wages increased by $60,000. Chief has recently done some restructuring within the department. We are able to eliminate 2 positions, and we're going to utilize the funds from those 2 positions to be able to spread that out among the officers, which is going to give a lot of our officers anywhere from 8 to 10% pay increases to try to get us more in line with other agencies. Yes, sir.
How many open positions do we have?
We have 6 now, 6 right now. So, and I'll let Chief, if you want to speak real quick with what we're doing with utilizing the funds from those 2 and putting them back, what your thinking is with regards to recruiting and retention based on the new rates they'll be paid.
Yeah, our big thing is that bottom line entry. Where it's at now, most people won't even give us a second look. Certified, uncertified, or whatever. We're having best fortune right now with those coming in uncertified. What we're looking at here, give or take, our entry level for someone with no experience and no college will be around 40 to 41,000. As we build up, my conjecture was that even through the year, if we'd have remained where we were, we wouldn't have filled all the vacancies anyway. Of course, I threw in also next budget year, I might apply more, but either way, we got to fix what's bleeding now. We're bleeding pretty bad to get officers in here. Matter of fact, today I've already got a call. It's kind of out, but non-monetarily, if you will, and old officer thinking about coming back. So if we can get up there and be competitive and then throw in some special events, and although we will impact our overtime, there's still going to be overtime out there to keep them pretty close, if not beyond, west of here. I think we can beat a lot of salaries out there. Of course, the county, they're about to get a big one also, but then again, I play with calls for service and how busy they are and not having to work in the jail, so I'm trying to recruit that way also. Things like tattoos and beards and things like that young kids want to do. But this is really, I'm overly positive it's going to get us some people in the door. And even if we got to have them away for about 8 to 12 weeks to put them in the academy, we can train them the way we want instead of end up with what I would call a gypsy officer that's got a lot of bad habits.
So you changed the standard for hiring. You mentioned elimination of restrictions on tattoos. Hair,
Right, that's policy. The facial hair tattoos is policy.
How much longer do you think the overtime trend will continue?
That's a big conversation that Chief and I have had.
I mean, you know, if we're going to use the budget for guidelines for expenses, and I'm looking at this overtime arrangement, and you say we have 4 openings, so it's likely to continue for quite some time to replace those. You could run another $100,000 over between now and the end of the fiscal year.
If I may. So I think what he's saying is he's had a conversation with a number of officers that previously worked here, some of which we are likely to get back when the new pay structure goes into place, which would fill some of those vacancies immediately.
That's July 1?
That would be July 1.
So we still have 2 months.
With regards to overtime for this year, yes, we have dealt with not just police vacancies. We had a lot of dispatcher vacancies. And dispatchers were accounting for a lot of the overtime early in this year because I think we had at one point 3 out of 5 were vacant. And
Yeah, really, yeah. And we're full there now.
And we're
include
full.
a supervisor, communications
Yep.
supervisor.
Yep.
So we're full there right
But we're thinking if we can get the people in the door, which I know the message is going to get out there, and we've got guys that the only reason they left is they could take a $5,000 pay increase to go somewhere else. We would love to come back if we can get that pay up. And Chief and I have talked about the overtime and trying to reduce that down once we get full.
Yeah, I don't have money, I don't have a problem paying them, I just would like to see the numbers here so that 9 months from now, we're not in a situation, I don't fit cash flow analysis, so I don't really know what financial situation of the town is. I mean, the numbers look great, but it doesn't take into account what we have already obligated and what our cash flow is going to be for the time of year. And, you know, this one overtime are your expenses. And with 4 vacancies, I can see, unfortunately, I see these numbers not being in line. We need to be upfront and put those numbers in. But that's just my.
The 2 positions that you eliminated, were they already vacant?
Yes. They were.
So it has no direct impact on
Well,
current costs.
and-
Current costs.
I'm gonna expound on one more thing about the restructuring. So each shift has gone to 3 patrol officers where it used to be 4. So what's happened now is he's implemented watch commanders. So each shift's got 3, but there's a watch commander for these 2 shifts, a watch commander for these 2 shifts. And what the watch commander is doing is now balancing their time between the 2 shifts during the highest peak hours, which will allow for a 4-person coverage during the peak times of call for service. So on a Friday and Saturday, they may be working more 2 in the afternoon to 2 in the morning based on the calls for service, whereas Monday through Friday or Monday through Thursday, they may be working more 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. or something like that, which is still going to give us the 4-person coverage on the road. All right? Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
So right here, you'll see E911 expenses were increased by the 88,000, and that's going to be for the upgrades to the dispatch center. I think that's going to be new consoles, new furniture, and things like that, which the state reimburses.
There's no new vehicles in this budget.
There are no new vehicles in this budget. Maintenance contracts have increased 5,500 due to increased pricing for services. That's one of the things that we've seen with inflation is just the cost for maintenance contracts continue to increase and continue to increase. The street department budget, the most significant change in this goes back again to the garbage fees and accounting for the expense that we will have out to waste management. And we've also budgeted 15,000 more in sidewalk repair as the county has approved us for 50,000 this year versus the 35 that we've gotten, 30 or 35 that we've gotten in previous years. And then for the non-departmental budget, 46,000 has been budgeted in Miracle cost of living, which accounts on the general fund side. Back to this 4%. That is for every department except the police department. We're looking at their structural change and the raises that they'll be getting as a part of a separate deal. The 4% on cost of living will be for all departments in the general fund except
Does
for
the 46,000 cover anything other than the 4%? Is there any room in there for merit increases? And where do you handle bonuses and person of the year?
Right now, we've really tried to put the focus on just getting that cost of living up to 4%. I will say that a couple of you have expressed 5% that you would like to see 5% for employees. I mean, I think if we can circle that discussion until the end of this, I've got an idea and something I want to pitch to you guys that would give us the allocation of funds that would allow us to do 5%. You know, certainly if we would rather take a 1% for merit and a 4% cost of living, we could do that.
Administration.